So someone finally knocked Seedance out of the #1 spot in the image to video leaderboard. And that someone is Grok Imagine 1.5. So of course, I had to test it myself. I wanted to see how it actually holds up inside of a real project, in a real filmmaking workflow, against the tools that I'm already using. Because leaderboards are one thing, but finishing actual scenes is a completely different game. So in this video, I'm going to break down what Grok got right, where it started to fall apart, and whether it actually fits into my current workflow. All right, let's go ahead and jump in. All right, let's go ahead and jump in and test this whole thing out. And by the way, if you're new here, I'm Khalil from AI for Real Life, and I go through and I test out different workflows and different AI image and video tools to see what works best in the AI video and filmmaking workflow. And today I want to see if we have a new one for the catalog, and that's Grok Imagine 1.5. I've not messed with Grok that much in the past, to be honest with you. I've stayed away from it, but now that it's getting to the point where it seems like it might be a contender, I'm going to go ahead and give it a shot, because I don't like to use every model that's out there, just because there's so many updates and so many things that come out that I would be doing that all day, every day, instead of creating the things that I'm trying to create. So for this one, I'm going to use the Higgsfield platform to test it out. You can also access Grok through Grok's native platform, grok.com/imagine. And with this, they have the image model, video model, and their agent. And I've heard some pretty good things about their agent too. I have not tested it out yet. If that's something that you're interested in, let me know in the comments, and it may be something that I'll cover in the next one or one of the next ones. But this is the platform for that. But I'm going to go ahead and use Higgsfield because I'm already tied into Higgsfield. They know what they're doing with all those kind of things. And also, I don't want another subscription this week. So if I want to go to 720p, I've got to pay some money. Just something to keep in mind. Not a big deal if that's what you want to do. All right, let's go ahead and jump into Higgsfield, and I'll show you exactly where to find it. Here's Higgsfield. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump over to video. We can see all the different video models we have here, and now there is Grok Imagine 1.5. So I'm going to click on that, and I've already been working in it a little bit today. I don't know what's happening right there. Oh yeah, I've got Claude building out a project for me, and I'm testing out this AI video pipeline that I'm building. And so it looks like we've got some videos that are coming up while we're working, so that'll be interesting. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. So what I wanted to test was, there's a video sequence that I have been developing for the Life of the Lazy Mon. And with this, I've already developed a version, testing it with both Seedance when Seedance 2.0 just came out, and Kling 3.0. I think I was using Omni and then regular, because that was my main tool that I was using for a while before Seedance was available over here. So as you can see, let's look at some of the other generations that we did. This one was the Seedance 2.0 generation. All right, so as you can see there, this is the whole concept behind this right here. Is my character is just arriving in Puerto Viejo, Costa Rica for the first time back in 2004, and seeing a world that he didn't know really even existed, a world that speaks to him, right? So I was trying to get this multi-shot sequence down within 15 seconds, so that's what Seedance 2.0 came up with. So I was pretty happy with that. That was the main one that I really liked. There were a couple of other versions. Where did they just go that fast? Here's the Kling 3.0 generation of this same thing. Pretty good, but it did not knock out the multi-shot, which I was going for here. Now, these turned out pretty well. They're not perfect. There's a few things that I didn't like about these. The main one is that some of the clips, the bus is riding backwards like this, but at the same time, this is pretty solid. And this one is actually the Cinema Studio. And I think it was at the 2.5 version at this point, maybe 3.0. All right, so you can see what we were working with before we jumped into Grok. So I wanted to try that same thing out with Grok. Now, when I went to go do this, the first thing that I noticed was I went ahead and went to drop in the exact same prompt that I used for the other ones. But I could not do that because this one maxed out at 2,500 characters. So with that maxing out at 2,500 characters, the other one was longer than that for Seedance. That's something to keep in mind. So I couldn't do the exact same prompt for this one. So I went ahead and modified it a bit, cut it down a little bit, but try to keep the same elements and same vibe. So this is the output that we got very first time. Grok Imagine 1.5, 720p is what they max out at. So if you look at this, it's actually really solid. And 3 to 6 months ago, I probably would have been flipping out over this because it's really solid. But now that we have gone to a different level, you have to pick it apart a little bit more. So look at this, and there's a few things that I'm going to point out, and they're not necessarily that big because you can rerun them or comp it out, but that branch right there, or clip it out, but that branch right there, it goes through, hits them through the bus, ends up outside somehow. And it did not only do it that one time. I tried it again just to see what happened. Same thing, that branch is there. But one thing that's happening with these generations versus the other one is that this generation, he's actually driving forward on the bus, like he's going forward on the bus. There's a couple things that didn't work where he switches sides right there, different things like that. But the overall vibe, the overall feel, pretty solid. So let's look at the Seedance version again, and you can be the judge of which one worked out better. And here's the Seedance version. So you see how it has just a little better feel to it. The look, the lenses, the angles, all the different things, the cuts on it, they're a little more true. So for this one, for me, I still go with Seedance 2.0. The main thing that I don't like is that the bus is going backwards. So I'd have to cut out that clip. All right, let's jump back over to Grok and let's look at the second test that I did just to see if this was going to work out. This one, I wanted the character. He's sitting in the airport before the trip down to Costa Rica, and basically he's just daydreaming about what it's going to be like. And so I put this prompt in, built it out. This is what we got. Not bad so far. Then you get this whole thing that happens. That's okay, right? Because these things happen. The first run on a lot of video generation isn't the one that you're going to take, and you're not going to get every single cut in the multi-cut sequence down most times. Now, Seedance 2.0 does a pretty good job of getting it down that one shot. I have to run it a lot less than models like Kling 3.0, and I love Kling 3.0 for just the realism and the grittiness and all the things about it. But when it comes to anything like really dynamic like this or a multi-shot sort of thing, it doesn't really nail it as consistently as Seedance does for me. All right, let's see if we can find the Seedance version of this. All right, here's Seedance versus. Now, there are some minor things here, but overall, look at what it is. That's not very natural right there. And he switches his feet kind of morph from regular foot to goofy foot surfing right there. He switches, it just kind of switches. But those are kind of minor things. And obviously, you won't be able to keep that in there if this is something that is going out for a client or a feature film or something like that. But you could definitely take this first part and then cut out, go in with the second part and modify that. So that's the difference between Seedance 2.0 and Grok Imagine 1.5. So for this again, Seedance 2.0 takes it for me. And let's actually look at something really quick while we're going over this, because I want to talk about this part of it, this aspect of it. Well, when I came into this, I thought that Grok Imagine 1.5 was going to be much cheaper than Seedance. And I was like, okay, if it gets close to the level of Seedance and it is a lot less expensive, then it's going to be a viable option, right? Well, let's look at that. Okay, let's go for a 15-second generation. It's going to be 67.5 credits in order to pull that off. And that's Grok Imagine 1.5 at 720p. 15 seconds. So let's go ahead and bounce over to Seedance 2.0. And right now it's at 90, but that's at 1080p. So drop it down to 720p, and that's at 10 seconds. Bump that up to 15 seconds like Grok, 68 credits. So it's essentially the exact same price. Now I do get a discount based on the plan that I have. So if you don't have that, it is going to be much more expensive to use Seedance 2.0. But for me, it's pretty much the same. So does it make sense to go a half step down from what I've seen so far for that little of a discount? So let's look at it here. Let's go ahead and bounce back over at 10 seconds real quick to show you. Grok Imagine, 10 seconds, 45 and 45. Both of them are 45. So I don't know exactly why I would go from this version to this version for the same price. Now, will that change once this promotion or whatever ends with Seedance? Maybe. And Grok is going to get better at that point. But at the same time, Seedance is not sitting in the background saying, okay, like they won. Everybody is upping the levels, and it's going to be really interesting to see what comes about in the next few months. Let's go ahead and jump into one more test really quick just to show you the difference. This is Grok Imagine 1.5. Here's the prompt. So the prompt was like an FPV. Let's see. The shot begins in a quiet and intimate pressed close to the airplane window, raindrops, scratches, fingerprints, all these kind of things, right? The camera slowly pushes towards the window, then passes through it in a dreamlike FPV move, as if memory leaves the cabin. Outside the aircraft now, the camera glides along the fuselage in humid cloud mist. The airplane wings cut through vapor, condensation trails, a lot of details there. The clouds part below the runway and the airport, lights in San Jose, or Juan Santa Maria International Airport appear in the distance. Final beat, the plane touches down on the wet runway, tires releasing a quick burst of spray. All right, so you can see the idea of it, right? This plane is flying, the FPV style camera goes out of the window of the plane, catches the motion of it as it lands, all those little actions with the wheels hitting, the mist spraying, all those kind of things, right? And one thing I didn't do here that I probably should have done is this one. I did 10 seconds to save a little bit of money because I wasn't sure how it was going to work. I was burning through credits here, just trying to figure out how this works. So I did 10 seconds on this, but I think it could have done better. As you see, as it comes to the end here, could have done better with 15 seconds, or we could have marked out the timeline, the exact markers in seconds on this and how this different angles are supposed to hit. But we didn't, and this is what we got. So you can see that is Grok Imagine 1.5. Let's go ahead and jump over to Seedance to show you what happened with that one. All right, so as you can see, it did much better with the prompt adherence when it came to this part, especially going out of the window. And what were the exact words? Outside the aircraft now, the camera glides along the fuselage in humid cloud mist. It did much better job at that. The realism that you're seeing as it hits the runway right here is much better. The physics of it, the weight of it is much better, but it speeds through it because I put it at 10 seconds instead of 15 seconds. And with 15 seconds, it probably could have had a little bit of room to breathe there. So if I were to redo this, I would do it at 15 seconds. Another thing to point out here. So this is all image to video, right? Because that is all that, from what I understand, Grok has available right now, the Grok 1.5. So with image to video, the actual original image that I put into this was a 21:9 aspect ratio. But it looks as if Grok only does 16:9, if I'm seeing this correctly. So it came out at 1280x720, meaning that it does not have the 21:9 aspect ratio available. That's what I deduct from this, and I'm pretty sure that's true at this point. So looking over these, what does this mean? Well, for one, there's a very big thing about this. This is all image to video, and the main workflows that I'm using and a lot of people are using for control right now are using the elements features. And that is where you can tag certain characters, certain things with elements. Let's jump over and show you that really quick. So with Seedance 2.0, if I wanted to do that scene, I could go ahead and put my character in. I could make an element of the airplane. I could make an element of the airport, all these different things so that everything stays consistent. And why does that matter? Well, that matters because if you have an image, and especially if you have something like this where you have the character and he's supposed to be wearing a certain thing, we could write it in the prompt to try to get the outfit exactly right. But we start off with this frame and say he's supposed to have on tan khaki shorts or something like that, or board shorts, a specific type of board short. And then it zooms in. And for this one, it wouldn't have mattered. But for other ones, it'll zoom in and it'll show their bottom half. And if you don't have that tied in as an element, just with a description, it's not going to nail it 100%. None of them nail it 100%, but it's not going to nail it the way that it needs to. So after doing these tests with Grok Imagine 1.5, where it sits with me is it is an option now. So when you're doing these projects and you're trying to generate a video, sometimes Seedance will block something because of IP or it'll fail for whatever reason. Same thing with Kling. Maybe the multi-shot's not working so well, or maybe the speaking is not coming out correctly. This gives another option at a similar level to those other platforms. So that to me is what Grok Imagine 1.5 is right now. It is a viable option if the other ones fail, because at the price point, the quality level, it's okay. But am I going to stop the process that I have when I've built out all these elements that I can use for my characters and scenes and all these things to go back to image to video direct? I don't think so. So that is my quick take on Grok Imagine 1.5. But these guys are all up in their game. This is not going to stop this way. This is going to keep on going, and things are going to get better. So that was my take on this. We'll see down the line where it fits, how it fits, but right now it's an option. So that's my take on Grok Imagine 1.5 right now. I can definitely see why it climbed to the top of the leaderboard, and honestly, there are some things that it does really well. But for the way that I build projects, workflow still matters more than rankings. We'll see where this goes, because if they start adding character systems, elements, and some of the continuity tools that we're seeing in the other models, then this conversation could look very different a few weeks from now. So if you found any value in this video, go ahead and give it a like and subscribe to the channel. And if you've been using Grok, let me know what you're seeing in the comments. I'd love to hear what's working, what's not working, and whether you found something that I missed. Also, if you want the guides, workflow, breakdown, prompts, courses, newsletter, all those kind of things, all those resources that go along with these videos, you'll find everything linked down in the description. Well, thanks for watching. I really appreciate you being here, and I'll catch you in the next one.